In a world yearning for change, there exists a community of visionaries and innovators, united by a common goal: to solve Earth's biggest challenges. From climate action to quality education, we're tackling all 17 Sustainable Development Goals reassembled as 10. We embody sustainability, unity, and empathy. Our character and reliability shine as beacons of hope. As role models for future generations, we're building a world where wisdom and consciousness rise, harmonizing life with nature and all species. Join us. Together, let's create a balanced, sustainable future for all.
DLR Tribe, super happy to be here with you on another Wednesday episode with such an interesting topic that we prepared for you today. But as the usual, I want to welcome you wherever you are in this beautiful world, location-wise, and any other kind of characteristic-wise, because Tech Leadership Lab is here to unite the world and be a catalyst in solving the SDGs sooner. And that is one of our most audacious missions, because I believe that if we unite the right type of people, the right type of leaders who are here and wishing us to have a good future, not just for us, but for the future generations, we can do so many things together. And this is one of our mission, Tech for Good, led by Good Hearts, solving the SDGs sooner and creating a future that we all want to live in. And with that said, you probably know already that we are on the verge of a new project, the global story that will just tackle the discovery, the research around what is the unifier story that can make us today as humans be united, collected, and give that kind of clarity for the policy makers and decision makers around the globe to know what they need to tackle in order for us to connect the world to the grid in the best way possible. And today, in our discussion, we have an absolutely amazing guest for multiple perspectives and purposes. Before that, I would want to say that Dr. Louis Rosenberg, is currently the CEO of Unanimous AI and its new product, Thinkscape, and also our new partner in the project, the Global Story Project, where we want to create a unifier story also using their technology. But Louis here is absolutely a revolutionary, not just because he's a pioneer in virtual reality, augmented reality, and a researcher for so many decades in AI, but also because he has that kind of very, very, how to say it, creative mind, writing and designing and scripting not just creative pieces like articles, but also videos. So I believe that today we will have a discussion from which we will learn so many interesting things. Welcome, Luis, to our show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And I want to tell you that we discussed in the background inside Tech Leadership Lab, we could discuss so many interesting things because you are coming with your knowledge around what happened at the beginning when virtual immersive realities were just at the beginning. And your CV, your background is absolutely amazing because it's not just that you worked in research labs like the NASA MS Research Center, but also inside the US Air Force Research Center, Air Force Research Laboratory. So you were exactly at the beginning of this immersive technologies. And then you also founded the VR company, Immersion Corporation, that just had 30 years of creation last year. You are writing books. You have a new book that is coming out this June, and it's called Our Next Reality, or better said, How the AI-Powered Metaverse Will Reshape the World, where you co-authored this book with Alvin Wang Graylin. And you're writing amazing pieces. And I want to start with this because creating this type of expectation about how many interesting things we can discuss today, it's a good thing for our audience. And let me welcome everyone on LinkedIn who is joining now live. And as always, we are very curious to read all of your comments, questions, and engage in a meaningful conversation together where we can shape a better future. And also our YouTubers, and many of you will see this probably as a replay, but on LinkedIn, we have many live viewers right now. And with that said, Luis, you just wrote a very, very interesting piece 2 days ago on Medium, and I want to read this just because I want to make sure that people read things. Sometimes time is just so precious, we have no time to read anymore. And so this is a good starter for our conversation. The AI manipulation problem is urgent and not being addressed. Please go to Medium and read this article when you have the time after our live today. Our lives will soon be filled with conversational AI agents designed to help us at every turn, anticipating our wants and needs so they can feed us tailored information and perform useful tasks on our behalf. They will do this using an extensive store of personal data about our individual interests and hobbies, backgrounds and aspirations, personality traits, and political views, all with the goal of making our lives more convenient. A great intro in what is going on around us. And with that said, Luis, the first question is a tough one, but you are the most qualified one to answer it. Describe us, our future in 2030. Make it a movie in our head to see what you see.
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I'll say that for everybody, things feel like they're moving faster than they've ever moved in terms of technology. I hear that from people who are in every profession, and I also hear that even from people in the artificial intelligence space. And so it's if it feels like it's moving fast to you because you're not in technology, just be aware it feels just as fast for everybody. And it's really the first time in my career it's been like that, where even people who are at the really focusing every day on these technologies, even they feel like it's becoming overwhelming how quickly things are changing. And so in as you mentioned in the introduction, I just have a new book coming out called Our Next Reality that actually comes out June 3rd. And it's really about this exact question, which is what is the world going to look like as a result of changes in computing? And the book, which I co-wrote with Alvin Graylin, really looks at two key issues, which is the really rapid changes in artificial intelligence and the parallel changes to computing itself as computing becomes more immersive. And really both of these issues are really tightly connected together because they're both driving towards the same thing, which is to make computing more natural for humans. We humans have computing emerged in the 1950s, started out very much not natural. People programmed with punch cards, and they looked at really crude screens with green text, and over time it's become more natural. But really, for the last decade, it's kind of stagnated in that we've been stuck in this world of computing where our information is trapped on flat screens through a mouse and keyboard, and those flat screens have been on our desk. The biggest change over the last 10 years is that those flat screens are now also in our hands. We carry them around all day. And so we now live in this world where our digital life is really important to us, and yet we're interacting with our digital life by staring down at little screens in our hands, using touch screens to interact. And what's about to change, the first really big change, is the shift to conversational computing, where we will, instead of using mouse and keyboards and screens, we will just be talking to our computers, and our computers will be talking back. The second big change is that content will be moved off of the screen and just into our environment through mixed reality, or Apple calls it spatial computing. But content will increasingly cease to be on our screens. And so when we look at conversational computing, for a long time we've been promised this. And it's funny because you go all the way back to the 1960s and the early Star Trek episodes in the 1960s, and Captain Kirk was talking to the computer and the computer would talk back. But it was even in the 1960s, our vision was, Captain Kirk would say, computer, answer this question. And then the computer would answer the question. And then we had that for the last 10 years with Siri and Alexa, where people would ask, issue a command to the computer and the computer could respond. That's not conversational computing. Conversational computing is you're talking to your computer the way you would talk to a person. You hold an interactive dialogue. You ask questions to the computer asks questions back to you. And so you're engaging in this interactive dialogue with an entity that we're now increasingly referring to as a conversational agent. A conversational agent, I prefer to think of it as a conversational spokesperson, because it's really whatever service or business you're interacting with will increasingly have a virtual spokesperson that's representing that business or service and talking back to you. And so how we interact with websites, how we interact with search, how we interact with product, and increasingly be an artificial agent, conversational spokesperson, engaging you in conversation, asking you follow-up questions, and this is very natural, it's very intuitive, and it's very positive from the perspective that this is really how humans were meant to interact. On the other side, and it relates to the articles that I wrote recently in Medium and in VentureBeat about conversational agents and the danger of manipulation, is that these technologies, while really powerful and really natural and will do all these great things, that power can just as easily be abused, and these conversational agents could be a very dangerous form of manipulation and influence for persuading people to buy things they don't need, for convincing people to believe things that are misinformation and disinformation. And so one of the big things that I have written about a lot really over the last 5 years is, including in my new book, Our Next Reality, is things are moving quickly and these technologies are becoming so powerful that regulators need to get ahead of it, because we are going to be, even just 2 years from now, we're going to be spending a lot of our time talking to computers, getting a lot of our information conversationally, and the policy is not in place, the regulations are not in place to protect us from these artificial agents being used as mechanisms of influence, mechanisms of persuasion, mechanisms of propaganda, and they will be far more powerful than the type of influence that we currently see on social media, which is images and videos and documents. Because when you're engaged interactively and you're talking to an AI and that AI is talking back and it has an objective to influence you, it will in real time be reading your reactions. It will pitch you a piece of information. It will see how you react. It will even read your emotions and your vocal inflections and your facial expressions. And then it will adjust its tactics to overcome your objections. And so it can be this very, very powerful form of influence, far more powerful than we've ever seen. And so as we look to the future, to 2030, again, I think these technologies can have amazing benefits in making computing more natural, in helping us learn things, in tutoring us, but if we don't have the protections in place to protect against the reverse of that, because the reverse of educating us is manipulating us. If we don't have protections in place against the reverse of that, it could be very, very dangerous. And so I think it's up to everybody to be aware of these amazing possibilities that are coming, but also to put pressure on regulators and policymakers to make sure that these powers are constrained when it comes to how they could be used against society. So that's kind of a long answer to where things are going in 2030. The other piece of it that's worth mentioning, because people don't often think about it, is that these artificial agents that are going to be guiding us and interacting with us, they're also going to be part of our mobile devices. And so the mobile phone, which again, I mentioned, we're all staring down at, as we walk down the street, bumping into things. In 2030, we're going to look back at that and think, oh, that was silly, because we're going to have wearable devices. First, they're going to be just in our earbuds, where these artificial agents are whispering in our ears as we're going down our day, reminding us, oh, pick up your laundry. And these artificial agents will have the earbuds will have cameras on them so they can see what you see. They'll have microphones on them so they can hear what you hear. Or you will upgrade to glasses that have the cameras and microphones. But whether it's earbuds or glasses, these artificial agents will very quickly help us, not just by answering what we say to them, but by reacting to what we are seeing and hearing in our world. And I know for some people that sounds science fiction-y. Meta is already doing this with their Ray-Ban glasses. They already have AI built in that can see and hear what you see and hear. Google and Apple and Amazon are all working in that direction as well. There's an arms race going on right now for developing the most powerful artificial agents and for putting them into mobile devices that include cameras and microphones, so that every one of us basically has this agent, this assistant that's again whispering in our ears and guiding us and helping us. And again, there's really powerful positive things, but if there's not regulation in place to protect against those same technologies influencing us, it's really, really dangerous.
We lost you for a second. I will jump in. Luis, I would want to frame the next questions here, and I hope you are back with us. And internet doesn't play with us today. Okay, you're back. Good. And what I would love to frame here is that you brought the emergency factor in place, and this is one of the common denominator between us and our partnership, because we also are here. We concluded that policymaking needs to speed up because we sometimes tend to stay in the past, and including science, including domains like medicine, they are still using the old medicine, and they don't use the new data that is out there to improve our healthcare system and our health in general. The same with you. Your warnings became very prevalent now that, okay, if until now we were just like discussing things and we had time, we don't have time anymore because of this arm race that it's now between the big companies to bring that AGI into power. But we are not ready for that AGI, and there are multiple things that need to be mitigated. And today, not tomorrow, we don't have that tomorrow. It's very interesting because we, as an SDG entity, we also see the same situation in climate. If just a couple of years ago, or during the Paris Agreement, there was a future that is coming and we need to mitigate, now that future is here now and we don't have the time anymore. I'm very curious because we are addressing 2030 for multiple perspectives where AI goes, SDGs go, the climate data and what we discussed that we need to have settled are going. But you have 30 plus years of VR and immersive technologies. You were between the first people who addressed this. You created the first functioned mixed reality system that was known as the Virtual Fixtures platforms inside the research laboratory at the Air Force, plus your Stanford work, your NASA work. How do you see that 30 years, let's say, just put into one conclusion? And now the next few years that we just have 2-3 years, you mentioned in your article that we need to shift very quickly. Do you think we are ready for that? And what could you advise us to do? And how do you see this unfolding?
Yeah. So, as we look back, it's funny because 30 years ago, when I was working in these fields, I really thought that they would move faster than they did. Right? Like I thought, okay, in the early 1990s, I thought that by the early 2000s, we would see virtual reality, augmented reality, artificial intelligence have a really big impact, and it took longer. All three of those technologies took substantially longer than it looked like they were going to take. And then you jump forward really to the last, say, 5 years, when things have really flipped, and all of these technologies started moving much faster than people expected. Part of that is because of technological breakthroughs in the area of artificial intelligence, and part of that is also because of corporate focus. In the virtual reality, augmented reality, mobile computing space, really over the last 5 years, we saw all of the really big tech companies, from Meta and Google and Apple and Samsung and Sony, Amazon, all realize that there's something they can see after handheld phones. It's the future of computing, and what they all really see is that it's AI-powered mobile devices that give you guidance and assistance everywhere you go. And I think it's worth thinking about this in a slightly different context, which is what the vision isn't just the future of mobile computing. It's the vision is these technologies are going to augment your thinking. I usually refer to it as augmented mentality, because when you have a voice whispering in your ear that can see what you hear and hear what you hear, and is powered by an AI that's increasingly smart, potentially going to be human level smart, we are changing what it means to be human. We are going towards this direction where we're all going to have an AI whispering in our ears, and those AI platforms are products, right? They're commercial products. And so we need regulation and policy so that we know that these intelligent entities that are whispering in our ears are doing it for our best interest and for the best interest of society in general, and are not doing it for the profit motives of individual corporations. And because we've already gone down this path once before, where we've had a utopian technology and we've seen that the business models sent things astray, which was social media. And you go back 12, 15 years ago, social media was new. We all saw that social media could have these utopian abilities: bring the world together, give a voice to the voiceless, democratize information, democratize society. And social media really can do all those things. But the business model of social media became selling targeted influence. That's what social media companies' business is. It's in getting as many people as possible to be as engaged as possible, to collect information from them so they can characterize those people and then sell influence to those people to advertisers. And if we end up doing the same thing with AI, where the business model is who can use these voices in our ears and voices in images that appear before us to sell the.
We lost you for a second. In the meantime, thank you, Danielle, for facilitating, quoting from our guest what he's saying and the main point that are important for us to have. And this highlights some important aspect that we also saw that today we are at a transition between the old and the new, and that I'm not sure how prepared we are, and this was the question I prepared before to you, Luis. So how prepared do you think we are mentally, intellectually, emotionally for the advancement in technologies like AR, VR, AI? Because this trio together is the most powerful ever today. It will augment our reality, as you said. It will transform us as a species before becoming a cyborgs, maybe. But either way, if we will have this technology, that we will feel forced to update ourselves, because otherwise we will become irrelevant. And so we won't have much choice around our privacy issues and anything else if we want to continue to function as humans in a world where everything is augmented. And this is my concern, basically, if I would need to address it. How prepared do you think we are to address this? Because if we are not even aware of these dangers, then maybe this should be the primary function of policies today, to make us prepared for what's coming.
So I think we're not prepared for a few reasons. We policymakers in this space tend to focus on either the problems that were obvious a few years ago or the problems that are really far out in the future. Or not real, but the problems that are further out in the future. And so the conversation is either the doomsday conversation of artificial, superintelligence that wants to take over the world, and that's kind of the far most extreme danger. And so people think about that, or they think about the dangers from a few years ago, which is artificial generative AI being used to generate misinformation in traditional forms, fake images, fake videos, fake documents, create basically misinformation at scale. And that's so policymakers are spending a lot of time focusing on how do we prevent misinformation at scale, and they're not thinking about the fact that traditional media is about to change. Traditional documents and videos are going to be replaced by these interactive agents, the AI agents that speak to us and engage us conversationally, and they're not understanding that is so much more potentially dangerous when you can deploy influence that way. And so one big issue is that just educating the public and educating policymakers that they need to be thinking a little further out ahead. A, because things are moving much faster than they ever have, so they have to be thinking ahead. And B, because artificial intelligence is creating a new form of media that's just totally different than anything they've tried to deal with before. This is not about regulating fake videos or regulating fake social media posts. Like, that is just a current problem that's just getting worse because it becomes easier and faster to do. The bigger problem is that AI is going to engage us conversationally and interactively, and we are not prepared for that type of influence and manipulation. And the public needs to think about this as well. In a few years from now, when you go to a website, instead of filling out a form, like let's say you want to buy a new car, instead of it, a questionnaire popping up about the price range and the type of car and whatever, it's going to be an artificial agent, a virtual spokesperson that looks just like anybody else, like a person would look like on Zoom. They're going to engage you in conversation. Oh, what kind of car are you looking for? What are your driving habits? What's your profession? What's your job? It's going to be talking to you interactively in this way. And because it's so natural, and because it's so interactive, and because you see a smiling salesperson on the screen that's a virtual agent, you're not going to be realizing that you're giving information into a database, right? Like when you're typing something into a form, you at least realize, oh, I'm giving information into a database, it's going to get stored somewhere. You're not going to think about the fact that, oh, when I'm conversationally talking to an artificial agent, I'm putting information into my database. It's asking me follow-up questions to draw information out of me. It's acting very friendly. It's smiling. It's making me feel like, oh, I can trust this artificial agent. It's reading, when it's conversational, it's reading my vocal inflections and my facial expressions. And it's assessing me more accurately than any human representative would be able to do. Artificial intelligence can read micro expressions on your faces, micro vocal inflections in your voice. And so we need to realize that even though these AI systems are going to increasingly look and sound and act like a person, they're going to smile and laugh and act friendly. We are going to think that, oh yeah, I can size up this AI agent. I can read their face. I can trust them the way you would size up a person. We have to realize these are not people. You cannot size them up. Everything you're looking at is a facade. You might think that you are understanding them, their motivations. You're not, but they are understanding your motivations. They are able to read your facial expressions. And so we're outmatched. Like we need to realize that we will be outmatched. Regulators and policymakers need to realize that we're outmatched, and they need to put protections in place. And so we're not mentally ready for this. We're not societally ready for this. We have one other big problem, which is that although individual people are really, really smart, as the way our current infrastructure works, we don't make good group decisions. And it goes back to your issues about climate change. And you see that even worse with climate change. Like you have billions of people who individually can probably make very rational statements about climate change. And yet at the level of countries, not taking the action that needs to be taken, not making the decisions that need to be made, because we humans, again, we are very good at making individual decisions. We did not evolve to make decisions among groups of thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions or billions. We actually evolved to make decisions in small tribes of 12 to 30 people. And so we are not equipped to make the type of decisions we need to make, and we've not focused.
Okay, and we have a small glitch here, and I will continue. Hopefully you can hear me here, because this brings us to the next level of the discussion that you started in 2014, the Unanimous AI. And this is the endeavor that caught our attention at Tech Leadership Lab, and we want to include it in discovering inside the biggest research story around the global story that we can just comprehend. Because what you did here, and for example, we have a ticker that you are known for developing artificial sworn intelligence to amplify collective intelligence. And this is absolutely stellar. This just was my main point. I wanted to connect and understand what you are doing and see your product in action, and how we can augment what you just said, that we can be more than 20-30 people, but create that kind of collective superhuman intelligence that might be able to speed up to date and bring those type of good decisions that we need in regulation and in policy, that we don't do unforgettable mistakes for the future. And so please tell me a little bit, because I also prepared here a couple of your quotes about what is a swarm intelligence, quotes that you said during the years. And because you have 10 years of working with Unanimous AI, and now you have a new updated product that is called Thinkscape. And Thinkscape will allow bigger groups, like we will create a test with 200 up to 250 people. But in theory, we can go up to 2,000 and maybe more people that collectively, united, will, let's say, have an answer to a problem that usually we don't see the answers for. And then if we think about the swarm intelligence aspect, do you think that we could regulate AI better? We could create a better future? Or what was your intention when you started this project?
Yeah. So for the last 10 years, I've been focused on the biological principle of swarm intelligence and technological solutions that can leverage what Mother Nature has learned over hundreds of millions of years. And so to give a little bit of context, as I said a moment ago, we humans aren't great at making large-scale decisions across large groups. That's not how we evolved. And it's really been a relatively short amount of time that we've really functioned in large groups, and we haven't figured out how to do that. And so, for example, right now, if you want to understand the intentions of a large group, the only technology that we humans currently use, and it's been the same for hundreds of years, is polling. Right. So we could take a poll, say, let's poll the public about a critical issue like climate change or like regulation or like poverty or any of these issues. And the problem with polling is that polls are actually polarizing. That's what they do to society. They don't show a society that has a lot of diverse views where they agree and how they can move forward in the best interest of the group. What a poll does is it reveals to a society the differences in their views. It highlights the differences, and then we publish the polls, and that actually reinforces the differences. And so our culture of polling and actually is part of the problem. It drives division, it reinforces division, it drives stagnation, it drives indecision, because people entrench. We are driving our own species to entrench in different positions and not make good decisions. Now, it turns out that we're not the only species that's a social species that works in large groups. In nature, many biological species have evolved very skilled ways of making very smart decisions in large groups. Biologists call this swarm intelligence, and it's how swarms of bees make really good decisions, how schools of fish make really good decisions, how flocks of birds make really good decisions. In fact, there's countless species that independently evolved abilities for them to make really good decisions in large groups, and they don't take polls, they don't take surveys, they don't use big data. And what they do is they form real-time systems that share information in real time, that essentially create like a tug of war, a push and pull, where the group can pull on a problem and make a decision in real time. And they make decisions that allow them to function significantly smarter than their individual brains can function. And so the thing that I observed 10 years ago when really studying the issue in the biology was that these biological systems have two benefits over large human groups. First, when they make decisions as a group, they actually amplify their intelligence. Honeybees, for example, can make decisions that would be difficult for humans to make, that are very complex multivariable problems, and they do it by working together as a system, and it's been proven by biologists in remarkable studies. Schools of fish do the same thing, flocks of birds as well. the other interesting thing is not only do they get smarter, but they also get wiser. And by wiser, I mean they make decisions that are good for the group. And they do it in a way that humans should look up to. If you look at a school of fish is this amazing thing, right? Thousands of individuals, nobody's in charge, and they're making decisions in real time to navigate the ocean, life or death decisions, where they should go, how they should flee, life or death decisions that have served them well for millions of years. These species are much older than humans. And you never see a school of fish that just cannot make a decision. They just stand there frozen in indecision, entrenched, battling with each other. No, they make decisions. You also never see a school of fish break into two schools of fish because they just can't agree and they go off in separate directions. Like that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen among bee swarms either, or bird flocks. So if you look at how nature evolved these systems for optimized decisions, what they do is, they create these real-time systems. And just talking about a school of fish, what a school of fish basically does is thousands of members. Think of a school of fish. Imagine that you're a school of fish and there's a predator coming in from the upper left. Predators coming in from the upper left. Only a small number of fish in the school see that predator, right? There might be another predator coming in from the lower left. Again, only a small group of fish on the outside see that predator. And let's say that there's another predator up in the upper right. Okay, you have thousands of fish. Each one has limited information about this problem. Like not a single fish can see all the predators. In fact, most of the fish don't see any of the predators. And yet this school of fish will take evasive action and avoid these three different problems that are all converging at once. They'll combine all that and make this rapid decision. Well, how can they possibly do that? Well, the first thing that they can do is they're essentially holding little conversations because they actually have this amazing organ on the side of their body called a lateral line that detects vibrations and motion in the water around them. And so if you're a fish in this school, you can detect the motion and direction of the fish around you. And you're having this little tug of war saying, well, I think we should move this way. And fish, 6 or 7 fish around you are saying, well, they think they should go a different way. And they're having this tug of war and they decide together what direction that small area of their school should go. Now, if you're that group of fish that sees a predator coming, that school of fish is going to make a decision to move. Let's say they see a predator coming from the right, they think they should move to the left. Another school might see another part of the school sees a predator coming from the left, and they think they should move to the right. So you got two schools of two different sets of information, two different threats. How does that all come into one decision? The amazing thing is that all these little groups overlap, right? So you have all these little overlapping groups. So the information comes in and it propagates quickly through the whole school. And so you have information coming in from all different directions. It propagates through the school. And then all these fish are deliberating in these small groups, and the whole school will quickly make an optimal decision or close to optimal decision, even though they all have limited information. Well, we humans have similar situations all the time. We live in a far more complex world. We all have different sets of information, different sets of perspectives, different sets of opinions. We all see threats coming from different directions, but we did not evolve the ability to combine all of this information and make good decisions together. And so when I started looking about this a decade ago, to me, like the holy grail of what like imagine if 10,000 people could have a conversation together, like 10,000 fish, and imagine if all these conversations could overlap. And so we're all in these small little groups deliberating, because turns out that we humans, we are really good at having thoughtful conversations in small groups, 5 to 7 people. And as the group size goes up, it becomes harder and harder to hold a conversation. And actually, by about 20 people, it's not a conversation at all. If you try to have 20 people in a chat room or Zoom call, it's not a conversation. So how can you allow 10,000 people to have a conversation? Well, Fish School would say, oh, let's have these little conversations, but have them all overlap. And so information can propagate through and it would be one unified conversation. So that to me was always like, if we had evolved that ability, we could make really good, thoughtful, deliberative conversations together. The problem is that we don't have the same ability. We didn't evolve the ability that fish schools have, which is to be in multiple conversations at once in their school structure. And in fact, if you're a person and you try to be in two conversations at once, you immediately get confused. There's actually a name for it. It's called the cocktail party problem. So the cocktail party problem is if you're at a cocktail party talking in a small group, if you start paying attention to the small group next to you, you immediately get confused. And in fact, our brain evolved to tune out the other conversations around us at a cocktail party. And so it seemed like there was this barrier, like we cannot do this. At Unanimous AI, we've been focused on this problem for years and years. And over the last few years, we started to use the most advanced AI technologies, artificial agents, to solve this problem. And so this new software platform we have called ThinkScape actually does something pretty amazing. And it actually works, which is, okay, let's imagine I had 10,000 people and I wanted them to have one conversation. What I could do is break them all up into these little groups of 5 to 7 people who can have thoughtful conversations. And then I could put an artificial agent into each of these groups. And this artificial agent has only one role, which is to observe the group and share insights from that group to the artificial agent in neighboring groups. So the artificial agent acts as the overlap that happens in fish schools. And so now I could, in theory, have 10,000 people have a single conversation, and artificial agents are allowing that information to propagate through, allowing ideas and insights to move throughout the entire system, and allow this group to have a single conversation that quickly converges on a smart answer, an optimal answer, the way a fish school does. And it turns out that this works. Now, we've never done it with 10,000 people. The most we've done is like 350 people at once. But it works, and it makes groups smarter, and it makes groups reach decisions that are in the better interest of the group. We actually just did a study we published with Carnegie Mellon a few months ago. We had groups of 35 people take IQ tests together as a conversational swarm. And so the IQ question would pop up on all their screens, and then they would conversationally discuss it in these small groups, and AI agents would pass information around. And what we found was that we took a group of people who had just their average IQ across those groups of 35 is 100. That's just how IQ tests are designed. But when they work together as a conversational swarm, they averaged 128 IQ on this test, which is a gifted level of IQ. It's the 97th percentile of IQ. So we were able to take people who averaged in the 50th percentile as a group, and they performed together as a conversational swarm at the 97th percentile. So we made groups smarter. And then we've also done studies using our swarm AI technology, looking at do groups make decisions that are in the best interest of the group? And they do. We've done studies looking at what's called the tragedy, the commons problem, which is that humans are bad at making decisions that are in the best interest of the group. When we bring them together in a structure of a swarm, they make decisions that are more selfless, better. They're thinking more about the society as a whole or the group as a whole. So groups get smarter, they get wiser, and they also get more efficient, meaning groups can converge, can aggregate all their perspectives and converge on smart decisions faster than our current methods, which really are unstructured and rely on these, I guess, kind of harmful things like polling, which again, just show us how we disagree and don't show us where we agree, where nature's method of swarm intelligence does the exact opposite. It actually takes groups and it allows them to find where they agree and build off of that and find decisions that are really in the best interest. So yeah, so my focus and my interest is using technologies, especially AI technologies based on this biological principle of swarm intelligence, to allow us to be smarter together and allow us to be wiser together. And with the hope that this could allow us to solve these hard problems that we're not solving well together as groups, and make hard decisions and figure out things like how to regulate super intelligent AI, or how to come together to address issues like climate change, where we're having a really hard time getting outside of our self-interest and actually looking at the problem from the perspective of a society or the perspective of a species. And
exactly. And Luisa, I need to interrupt a little bit, because if you can imagine, we have less than 10 minutes, and I know that we need to end this at the top of the hour, even if I just end it up 1 minute later. I promise to our audience that we will answer questions, and we will need to be very concise from now on, because there are many questions, not just received here, but also outside or before the event. And just a couple of them, please, if you can, to be brief, and also to highlight what you're bringing out. What I want to add here is just that this caught my attention. I truly believe in what you're doing at Thinkscape through Unanimous AI and with your new product Thinkscape. And this is why we took the demo and we saw the possibilities. And this could be that kind of question mark solved, that what we need in order to take the right decisions. And it's proven today that if the people are sharing between themselves their wisdom, and they are from different backgrounds and so on, they can get to a consensus much quicker just because of that. And if we can facilitate such interactions at a global scale and the global level, just creating this hype or swarm groups around the people from around the world, we can facilitate understanding, we can accelerate maybe human wisdom innovation, and we might find the right solutions for us to create those policies that not will destroy us, but will enable us and augment our future in a beautiful way. And with that said, let's go to the questions. This was from Julian. And he says that the limitations for structuring prospective scenarios in corporate processes. However, I'm exploring or discovering options for predictive development in physical security and crisis management. And then he asks, how can we use AI tools in these areas?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And when you're trying to solve a problem, like for example, crisis management, the typical way to use AI is find a big set of historical data and do some prediction on it. The problem is that issues like crisis management involve a lot of issues that are not in a big historical set of data, unless you change your definition of what a historical set of data is. And I like to think of, the hundreds of people in an organization, or the thousands of people in a society, or millions. There's a massive amount of data in their heads, right? Data that stays up to date as they observe their world. And so if we can bring together groups of people who have different perspectives, different knowledge, wisdom, insights, intuition about a corporate problem or a social problem, we can connect them together with Swarm AI in a platform like Thinkscape, or we have another platform called Swarm, and we can harness that real-time knowledge and that intuition, that wisdom, that expertise, and we can make very, very good predictions and decisions related to crisis management, related to really many corporate issues. And so I think that it's a very powerful perspective, and it starts from this idea that don't undervalue the amount of knowledge and wisdom and insight in a group, in a human group. Like we use words like intuition as if it's not real data. What intuition is your brain's ability to aggregate its complete understanding of the world that's getting updated every second and make really good inference. No AI system is that up to date. And so we can absolutely harness the intelligence and wisdom of corporate groups using swarm AI methods and make really good predictions and forecasts and for things like risk management.
Thank you for that. And now it comes a rock star in questions. Jackie is great in questions, pinpointing the most important ones, part of the Strategic Doing Institute, another partner of ours, very curious about your answer. What would indicate that the company is doing AI is an ethical company? Yeah. Thanks, Jack.
Yeah, so it's a super hard question. And I think part of it, and so I've run an AI company for the last 10 years. I think about this issue a lot. I think that there's really amazing things being done by very large corporations in the AI space, but I also really worry about how this whole space evolves. And we saw this problem happen with social media. And if you look back at social media, it's not like any one of those companies set out to create a dangerous technology. Like, it was not their goal. In fact, if you poll Americans right now, over 70% of Americans will say that social media is damaging to society. None of those companies who've created social media technologies set out to create a company and a technology that most of their customers would think was damaging to society. That wasn't their goal. So what drove them in this direction? It was their business models. Their business models, in the case of social media, were based on selling influence. That was not an evil decision. People did not want to pay subscriptions for social media. They said, oh, give it to me for free, and then you can advertise to me. And so the public was part of that decision that inadvertently sent us down this very unethical path, because what happened then was that these companies now started to compete to see who can collect the most data and use that data to influence people the most precisely and feed them targeted content throughout their lives, and that created this danger. And so, the problem in my mind wasn't necessarily bad ethics, although that definitely came in along the way, but it was all driven by a business model that forced them to push the limits in an arms race that was inherently not ethical. And so for AI, we need to stop that arms race. Like these, some companies are going to behave ethically, some companies are going to push the limits. But if regulators and policymakers can say, you know what, you can't do conversational advertising. You can't read people's facial expressions and micro expressions to optimize their influence in real time. You can't do that to persuade people and manipulate people and drive propaganda. Then these companies will compete on different, they'll compete for customers in different ways. And so I think that ultimately the question is, there will be ethical companies, there will be less ethical companies, but if we can guide the business models so that they're not competing down a path that is inherently dangerous, we won't have the same problem we had with social media.
This is great. And the final question comes from me, very, very quick, maybe from you to synthesize what scares you the most today and what excites you the most, just because you have this broad perspective and also the research element about what can go wrong, but what can go well.
Yeah. So, I am really amazed by the power of recent AI technologies, generative AI, large language models. I think it's a really positive thing for humanity that we're going to get off of flat screens and keyboards, and we're going to start using our senses in the more natural ways in terms of how we interact with information, how we communicate with computers. And so I think the potential is extremely, extremely positive, but it requires that policymakers and regulators get ahead of this problem and really influence the business models that these companies take. Because once those business models become entrenched, like they did for social media, you can't put the genie back into the bottle. You can't. There's nothing that regulators can do now to convince social media companies to not have a targeted influence business model, because these are the biggest companies in the world, and they rely entirely on that. But in the AI space, it's still we can still influence these business models. They have not these large companies are not yet selling influence conversationally, but they're about to, and so regulators really need to step up now and think about it as, let's guide the business model so that we're not going in the same dangerous direction we did with social media.
Thank you so much for today's discussion, and you'll be back with us and we'll do great things together, Luis. With that said,
it was fun. Thanks very much.
And with that said, we let Luis, because he has an appointment after, and we will just close it with some thoughts about the future. We at Tech Leadership Lab here, we are to make sure that we do our best to assure that we have a good future with today's technology and what we just learned today from Luis Rosenberg and the Swarm technology, that it's so exciting for us at ELL, and we want to include this in our pursuit on uncovering the global story, where you can find out more and more details about this, especially if you subscribe to our newsletter, you follow our LinkedIn page, because we are LinkedIn first there. And if you are not yet part of our tribe, we will also open a community very, very soon. And you will find out about this through our newsletter and LinkedIn as well. And what I've learned today, and what we also want to help you maybe to think differently about the future, is that we have the tools. Maybe everything that's happening today is too rapid for our mind. And as Luis said, we are not ready as mentally, intellectually, emotionally to comprehend the rapid pace of technology today. We have an arm race in technology. Which of the big companies are getting out with the quickest AGI model, because we don't even have a definition for AGI. We have multiple definitions, but what it is and what it will come out, we don't want to find out when it's too late, right? And we need those proper policies. I would love to wake up policymakers around the world to see that we need to act fast for all the SDGs and regulating AI in the right way, that we take the good decisions. And we are doing our part in that endeavor. Please connect with us, because we are here to connect the world together, no matter your location, gender, age, sexual orientation. We don't care about these things. If we want to solve our global issues and we want to create a better world, we need to think about the Earth and about us collectively as one species. And this is the only way we can solve the SDGs, starting with climate and all the other aspects like inequality and poverty, and what we know that exists today and it shouldn't exist today, if we would have the right type of leadership united through a common cause to put us together as a species that goes into a good direction with the help of technologies like AI, VAR, and AR that we have today. With that being said, I'm looking forward to meet you next week, where we will have a very interesting, different type of discussion. As always, I like to surprise you. And we at Tech Leadership Lab are doing our best to bring different perspectives, different people, different angles into a collective view about how we can truly act as one species that is concerned to solve our current issues and create a sustainable world for everyone, not just for today, but for the future generations. And with that said, until the next time, Christina Imre, the founder of Tech Leadership Lab, says hello and a wonderful day, evening, no matter where you are on this globe.
In a world yearning for change, there exists a community of visionaries and innovators, united by a common goal: to solve Earth's biggest challenges. From climate action to quality education, we're tackling all 17 Sustainable Development Goals reassembled as 10. We embody sustainability, unity, and empathy. Our character and reliability shine as beacons of hope. As role models for future generations, we're building a world where wisdom and consciousness rise, harmonizing life with nature and all species. Join us. Together, let's create a balanced, sustainable future for all.